Week in the Boardroom, brought to you by corporate board member and host NYSE Euronext, along with governance knowledge partners, the Center for Audit Quality, and Grant Thornton, and contributing partners, National Investor Relations Institute, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.
Welcome to this edition of This Week in the Boardroom. I'm TK Kerstetter with Corporate Board Member, and it's my pleasure to welcome my co-host this week, Scott Cutler, the Executive Vice President with the NYSE Euronext. And Scott, our topic for today's session is going to be the external audit assessment tool that is being launched by the CAQ, the Center for Audit Quality. And with that, that is a proper segue to our guest. Let me introduce Cindy Fornelli, who is the Executive Director for the Center of Audit Quality. And Cindy, audit committees have the responsibility to annually evaluate their external auditors, and the CAQ, with the help of 6 other organizations, Corporate Board Member being one of them, have created this tool to help companies do an effective job. Probably a great place to start is let's talk about what is the tool and how is it created.
Well, as you mentioned, very importantly, audit committees do have the fundamental responsibility to oversee the auditor. And part of that is also doing deciding whether or not to retain the auditor every year. So we think that's a best practice, that audit committees need to be looking at the auditor on an annual basis and determining whether or not to retain the auditor or to move on. And so we also realize that audit committees come in a whole range of sizes and levels of performance. So while every audit committee, we're sure, does some kind of assessment of their auditor, some of them do it informally, some do it more formally. So the tool is meant to provide a framework or a process for doing that annual assessment of the external auditor.
In actual practice, how does the board use it overall to improve evaluation effectiveness?
Well, the tool, let me first start with what the tool is not. The tool is not a compliance checklist, it's not a checklist, it's not a legal document or a regulatory document, but rather it is meant to provide a process or a format for audit committees to use to perform this assessment. And we think it should be more formalized. So while, again, I think all audit committees do some form of assessment, this is a way to not only give it some structure and some format to it, but also to demonstrate and to document that an assessment has occurred.
So, what was the goal of the center with this initiative? What were you trying to, what's the end result? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, after the financial crisis, leading up into that and immediately after, there were a lot of questions about what was the role of the auditor, what was the role of the audit committee, how did this happen? And so one of the potential reforms for after the crisis was a proposal. It was actually a concept release issued by the PCAOB, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, calling for whether or not there should be mandatory audit firm rotation. So that is that after a set period of time, the audit firm would have to rotate off of auditing that particular company. And we felt that that was not a good solution. The PCAOB nor anyone else really has come forward with evidence that tenure has any nexus to audit quality. And rather, we thought that what was really important was the audit committee's role. Because statutorily and fiduciarily, the audit committees are the ones that have the responsibility for overseeing the work of the auditor. So the tool was meant to help audit committees demonstrate that they've fulfilled their obligations and that they're taking this seriously and that they have a process that they use. The tool is scalable, it's short, so it really works for any size audit committee.
It's interesting that proposal by the PCAOB, we received incredible feedback from issuers that were very concerned that were that to be in place, costs were going to go up. And I think more importantly, the connection between the rotation and any improvement in actual audit quality which would presumably be the goal of that, there was really no link created.
There has been no academic evidence to that effect, nor has the PCAOB come forward with that. And you mentioned that you heard from the issuer community. Also, the audit committee wrote in. PCAOB received over 200 letters from audit committee chairs, unanimously opposed. Issuers unanimously opposed. The auditing profession unanimously opposed. In fact, over 92% of people who wrote in, over 700 people, opposed mandatory firm rotation. But I think it is important that auditors have to demonstrate their independence, objectivity, and skepticism, and that's part of the audit committee's role to oversee that. And in fact, one of the sections in the tool is to help audit committees get to how independent, objective, and skeptical the auditors are.
So is that really the importance of going through this process for a board or audit committee around performance, or is there something more?
No, I really think it is to help them demonstrate that they've taken their obligations seriously and, pardon me, provide a way for them to do that and a structure for them to do that. One of the other features of the tool is a survey in there that lets the audit committee go out to the others within the company who have interaction with the auditor so that they can also weigh in on how they felt the auditor did on independence, objectivity, and skepticism, how well they communicated with the audit committee and others within the corporation, and how they performed the audit. So it's divided into those three sections. And another thing that we talk about that's really important is in this collaboration is that audit committees also need to communicate with shareholders how they have performed their oversight responsibilities. So that will be a next step. And as TK mentioned, this is a collaboration with 7 organizations, including corporate board member and others in the public company space, the public company auditing space, the audit committee space, and also investment companies. They're an important part of this too, because investment company directors also have this responsibility to oversee the auditor.
Well, the feedback has initially been very good relative to this tool, but when we look at the center and what's on the horizon, what sort of follows this? What's next that you guys are going to be looking into as far as helping boards and audit committees?
Well, the big piece, the next big piece, I think, is the communication format, a way for audit committees to more robustly communicate with shareholders that they're taking their responsibilities seriously and how they perform those obligations. Also, we're looking into, with the collaboration, again, all 7 organizations, do audit committees need more tools or more experience on the various components of the audit? So is there some education that can be done helping audit committees fully understand? Because we live in such a complex, difficult, and global environment. Audit committees need to keep up, and there are a lot of critical pieces of the audit that we need to make sure that audit committees are comfortable with and understand so that they can ask the right questions of the auditor and know that this auditor is right for this company at this time.
So if one of our viewers has an interest in the tool, seeing the information or other information that the center covers, how best can they get information?
The best way to do it is to go to our website, which is www.thecaq.org. So www.thecaq.org. And all of our information's up there, the tools up there. There's also a companion piece for auditors and some of the things that auditors need to do on there. And all of our materials are free of charge. So I would invite viewers to go to the website and to monitor it, because as we develop these other tools, they also will be up on our website.
Well, the center has always done a great job in helping audit committees, so we appreciate you taking the time to come join us for this session. And that will conclude this edition of This Week in the Boardroom. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this week, and we hope that you'll come back next week and join us when we'll take a look at another important topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. And we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for This Week in the Boardroom, brought to you by Corporate Board Member and host NYSE Euronext, along with Governance Knowledge Partners, the Center for Audit Quality, and Grant Thornton, and contributing partners, National Investor Relations Institute and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.